everyone, welcome back to Voidheart Studios, and today I'm going to be doing another Super Nostalgia review. Yes, I know, I promised everybody I would start doing super relevant blasters again, but I got something really cool and rare. So I figure I ought do that first, because I wouldn't be able to wait, and I didn't want to spoil y'all because it's pretty much earned a spot on my wall, well, for just being itself. So let's talk about the Nerf SuperMAXX 5000. The SuperMAXX 5000 was released in 1997 as part of the Nerf SuperMAXX series, and is a kind of single shot compressed air blaster that is pump action. So yeah, let's get into the overview. Starting up at the front, you have a barrel that twist locks off. This is because this blaster is essentially a Swiss Army knife. These two things up top are also barrel attachments. And I'll go through each of them when I talk about pumping and firing. But yeah, up in the front is a barrel attachment that twist locks into this purple ring here. Going back from there, you have this whole front module, which this front module is actually what contains the tank. And this is something I was wrong about as well on my SuperMAXX 1500 video when I stated that the thing back here is the tank. No, the tank is actually up here on this one, and in the 1500 it is right behind the cylinder. This whole big piece right back here is just cosmetic. And honestly, if the tank were this big, this blaster would be quite frankly terrifying. It already has a really big tank and hits a lot harder than other vintage blasters, even with its stock ammunition. But yeah, going back from here, you have the trigger and grip. This grip is actually really nice. I generally have ergonomic issues with vintage blaster grips because generally some of them are a little small, not particularly properly rounded, and other things like that, but this grip is actually really nice. It feels really good, the trigger is nice, albeit a little heavy, but whatever. And then going back from here, you have the ammo holder. This blaster, this ammo storage here holds 4 Laramie darts. And yes, this is a Laramie blaster, because it's a SuperMAXX blaster. Laramie was pretty much the only people that made the SuperMAXX blasters. As much as I hate to say it, this blaster is not fully complete. Up here, there's supposed to snap in an extra arrow holder, but I already got this at an absolute steal of a price, so I'm not gonna complain about it not having extra arrow holders. So yeah, let's talk about how to use it and what these barrels do. This barrel right here is a Laramie dart barrel, or SuperMAXX dart barrel. You take your SuperMAXX dart, you shove it in the front, and then you pump this blaster up about 6 times. I think, now, here's the thing. The overpressure release valve kicks in on the 3rd pump, and you think, oh, well, you can't fill it up anymore because that's the overpressure release valve. No, on this particular blaster, the overpressure release valve doesn't kick in when the blaster is full. It kicks in on the 3rd pump. And I think it's to keep this from being too powerful, from their margins in 1997. Because this would have been probably more powerful than they would have wanted it, because when you actually take it to the full 6 pumps, this thing shoots rather hard. So to pump it up, you just, and then you pull the trigger and fire the dart. Switching out our attachments, this blue post is for arrows. You just slide an arrow on like so, again, pump her up about 6 times, and then fire. It shoots arrows a little softer than most, like, dedicated arrow shooters, but it's nice to have that compatibility. And I'll get on to compatibility later, because while I don't do it in this video, this post is actually compatible with a modern ammunition. And then finally, this chunky chode, which is a ball shooter. It shoots ballistic balls. Now, you'd think, oh, it'd be a single shot, but nope. 1, 2, 3, and you shoot them consecutively. Ah, that bounced right back at me. Ah, crap. Okay. Well, they just went all over my room, and I hope I didn't lose one. Yeah, it's a consecutive ball shooter. You have to pump up between shots, of course, but it does shoot 3 consecutively. And here's how it sort of gives you the surprise tool of the fact that we can actually pump this thing up to 6 times. It says on the side, for best performance when shooting balls, pump a minimum of 6 times. I don't know if it gets any more powerful when you go over 6 times, but yeah, you want to pump at least 6 times when using balls. And so, yeah, it's really easy to swap out barrels, and this top purple piece up here holds all the barrels. Now, the front one holds the arrow post and the dart barrel. Oh, I thought it held it a little more loosey-goosey, but I guess not. Never mind. But this one also has like thicker tabs, so that's why I kind of thought that. I think it's kind of funny to shoot arrows off of this because, you know, it's a giant pistol. And you shoot essentially big-ass missiles off of it. Yeah. That's really all I can give you in terms of an overview. So, let's see the Swiss Army knife in action. Alright, I am outside with the SuperMAXX 5000, and I have, well, I have full pocketses because we're shooting all the ammo this thing comes with. So, yeah. Starting off with, of course, the dart barrel loaded up with Laramie slug darts, or the hobby calls them Laramie slugs, but they're just Laramie's darts. I think if you want an official name for them, they'd be SuperMAXX darts, but yeah, Laramie slugs. I'm going to be giving them 6 pumps and then taking a crack at that target, which is my normal target, at about 20 feet away. Nice.
really accurate. Oh, I missed low. Don't really have sights on this thing, so you're gonna have to hip fire. There we go, hit the target. So, I'm gonna take off the dart barrel and put on the ball tube, the tube for the balls, and I'm going to be, I've got it loaded up already with, if I can peel. There we go. We got original Nerf vintage ballistic balls. These are the only 3 I have, and they're all loaded up in here, so you're only going to get 3 shots with balls. I'm going to try to see if I can loft one into the target. Oh. Do I can get that more arc? Oh. Just because. Ballistic balls are many things. Powerful they are not. And then finally, I have got the arrow post. The arrow post shall shoot arrows. I've got the arrows that came with it, the SuperMAXX arrows, which are interestingly a different size than every other vintage arrow I have, so it's odd. Okay, I'm also gonna have to loft that. Oh, no, oh, okay. Well, alright. So, next up I'm going to hit it with a Cyber Strike arrow, which this one is in much worse condition. But it is also slightly shorter than the SuperMAXX arrows. So, yeah. Okay. Figured it would have longer range since it's slightly shorter and therefore less mass. Up next I've got a yellow camo Nerf vintage arrow. These are just like the original Nerf arrows that would have come with like the Arrow Storm or the bow and arrow. Probably not the bow and arrow, but like these are the original ones. And these are the full length, I guess, arrows. They're longer than the others. And then I've got one with purple camo, just to see if the purple camo ones are different than the yellow camo ones. No, let me loft it a little bit more. Nope. Okay. Well, you know what? Boom! I love arrows. They're so silly. They're like big missiles. But, yeah. That concludes the firing demo of the SuperMAXX 5000. And I shall clean up all of this very old, very rare ammunition, and we'll go back inside and we shall talk about it. Alright, we're back inside with the SuperMAXX 5000. Let's talk about it. Starting with the practical stuff, we'll get into FPS. I put this blaster through my chronograph with the
SuperMAXX darts, I couldn't put it over with the arrows or the balls because they don't fit through the hole in my chronograph. But with Laramie darts, this blaster is hitting an average of 98 FPS on 6 pumps. Yes, an average, a mean average of 98 FPS shooting stock darts. That means this thing will break 100 on the high end with stock ammo, which is nuts. This thing has a crazy powerful tank. I mean, as you can see with the arrows and the balls, the range is kind of pathetic with those, but it is nice to have them because, you know, they're different ammo types, and in certain groups, or especially in the Nerf group I'm in, actually, ballistic balls and arrows count as shield piercers, which is kinda cool. I mean, I wouldn't ever use arrows as shield piercers because those things are too damn rare. And I wouldn't want them getting lost or stolen. But, speaking of arrows, the arrow post does have some modern functionality. Because not only does it take arrows, obviously, it can fire Mega XL right off the post. Womooski! And it whistles too. So yeah, Mega XL compatibility is always nice. And I'm sure that you can find a modern ballistic ball alternative. And the great thing is, once we get into more vintage blasters later, because there will be more vintage blasters later, I have plenty that I haven't reviewed yet. And I will just say this now. Every single arrow shooter from the 1990s, or any blaster that fires vintage arrows, because I know there was also the Blazing Bow that released in like 2013, can shoot Mega XL. Every single vintage arrow launcher can shoot Mega XL. And shoot it well. But of course, continuing with the practical stuff, I want to take a little bit and touch on mod potential, which is something I don't touch on very often in these reviews, and I really should more talk about mod potential, because mod potential in vintage blasters is a good thing to have. And like a lot of vintage Mega Dart blasters, this blaster can be rebarreled. But you don't have to permanently or even temporarily alter any of the parts that it comes with. Because, as the person that sold me this blaster was so gracious as to do, there are 3D printable adapters to adapt this blaster to CPVC, rather than just rather than having to shove it down the barrel that it already has and secure it with it. You just shove it in to this, attach it on like a normal barrel attachment, and then you fire rather violently. This is my CQB barrel. It's very short. I think it's like 2 1/4 inches. And with this barrel and worker 1 gram half darts, this blaster shoots 120, around 120 FPS. 130, I think, was the highest I got.
like 135, 134. But I'll have to grab something to use as a ramrod. I also made a... Do you mind? How very dare you? I also made a sniper barrel, which you take your dart, put it in the muzzle, nice and tight, and then you ram it down. Kind of like to keep an eye on it to make sure I don't vacuum load it with an unmarked ramrod. Then you attach it to your blaster, and then with this barrel, this blaster on the stock tank shoots 185 FPS on average. And the highest result I got was 192. This blaster, slightly modified, shoots harder than an Aeon Pro X stock. $185 FPS on average. Funny enough, the first shot I ever got with that barrel was also 185, but I shot more and did averages and got 185 as my average. So yeah, and conveniently, the pipe also fits into the Laramie dart holders. So now, I could literally hold every single attachment that I have for this blaster on it. So yeah, I neglect mod potential a lot in these videos, and I really shouldn't neglect mod potential, because mod potential is how vintage blasters kind of survive in the modern age, because this ammo is rare. So being able to shoot just regular half darts out of this blaster means that not only can you, not only can you just use this blaster out of war, it also makes it a whole hell of a lot cheaper. Because rather than having to find all these attachments, you can just buy a base, and getting the blaster for like, $150, $200, $300 even, because this blaster with all the attachments is really damn rare. You could just buy the base blaster, either print yourself or have somebody print you these adapters, go buy a length of CPVC, it's like $1 a foot, cut yourself a 7-inch barrel, and you're not only just firing regular modern darts out of a vintage air blaster, you're firing them quite hard. 185 is ridiculously impressive. My highest powered vintage blaster with a rebarrel is my Big Bad Bow, with it's hitting like anywhere from 105 to 120 on a 6-inch barrel. And it's one of the ones with a pretty big plunger tube. So knowing this, it's 60 FPS harder than that. With this barrel, this blaster is illegal at my group's indoor meetups, because our FPS cap is 160 at our indoor meetups. I have to use this either at comp, which I'll get absolutely stomped, or outdoors at our 250 cap. This thing has a lot of mod potential. And if you properly mod the tank and, there's mods you can do to the tank. I don't want to do them, and
I'm going to say be careful with air blasters, be it HPA or LPA, anything that stores a lot of highly compressed air. If you mod it improperly, boom, boom. But anyways, not to dissuade you or anything, but you do have to be careful with either with even HPA or even LPA blasters when you start really heavily modding them. But you can also get this blaster up to 300 if you mod it enough. 300 FPS on an air blaster from 1997. If only this thing weren't so damn rare. Now, this doesn't have quite the rarity status of the manta ray or the crossbow, but it is exceedingly rare, and to get one in really good condition will normally cost you multiple hundreds of dollars. But I was able to get in touch with a member of the vintage community called Shaz, and he sold me this blaster for $35. Well, $50 Canadian, but $35 in my own money. Which also really ended up being around closer to $85 when it came to shipping and import fees caused by our great Tangerine. But it is an awfully beautiful blaster, and this segues on to my opinion. I mean, what do you think? I love this blaster. It not only shoots, you know, 3 different types of vintage ammo, it shoots Mega XL off of its arrow post, and it can shoot half darts at 185 FPS. This might be one of my favorite vintage blasters. Now, I mean, nothing will take the crown spot from my darling Rototrack. I need to rebarrel my Rototrack at some point. But, yeah, I mean, it has earned its spot on the wall. And that should be enough to tell you this is a really, really good blaster if you can find one for a decent price on the secondhand market. And again, you don't even need to find all these silly little barrel attachments. As cool as firing vintage ammo is, and you know, firing Mega XL, if you just find the base blaster, all you need is a little 3D printed piece, and you've got full compatibility with modern darts. And I'm thinking about, you know, kind of taking advantage of this thing's massive air volume and maybe turning this one into using like a splitter, a pipe like splitter, to turn this thing into a double-barreled shotgun that fires 2 darts at once, which would bring it some more functionality. But yeah, I'm going to quit rambling now. The neurodivergence has certainly taken over today with this blaster, but I wanted to make sure I got this video out soon because it would be an agonizing wait to review even one blaster before this amazing thing. Yeah. And I believe that is all for this video. I really hope you enjoyed. If you did enjoy it, please leave a like and subscribe and comment your favorite thing about the SuperMAXX 5000. And I will see you in the next video. Until then, take care.